My parents forced me to shed weight for my sister's wedding, but after my jaw-dropping transformation, they couldn't stand my success. Mom forced me to lose weight for Tiffany's wedding, but after my transformation, Mom couldn't handle my success. Growing up, I was always an overweight child. I was always bigger than most of the other kids in kindergarten. While my peers were still figuring out what made them unique, my size was already something that stood out. As I grew older, the weight I carried became more noticeable. By high school, I was undeniably overweight, and my shape served as a constant reminder of how different I was. College wasn't much better. While some of my peers were discovering who they were or exploring new parts of themselves, I was still stuck in the same identity, overweight and occasionally struggling with it. Being the bigger kid wasn't easy. It exposed me to continuous ridicule, mockery, and nasty comments from people who didn't care to understand me. I was bullied more than I want to remember. Classmates teased me relentlessly, and their insults gnawed at me, creating deep insecurities that seemed impossible to shake. They'd call me names, crack cruel jokes, and I was often the punchline. I was always singled out, as if I were undeserving of affection or companionship. I was excluded from games, parties, and social gatherings, always on the outside, watching others live out the typical childhood and adolescent experiences I could never reach. These years of bullying shaped how I saw myself and interacted with the world. I felt out of place, so I found comfort in books. I buried myself in literature and stories that allowed me to escape the harshness of my daily life. Books never judged me or ridiculed me. I became known as the nerd, a label I didn't particularly enjoy. Tiffany, my younger sister, was very different from me. She was just a year younger, with an effortless charm that naturally attracted others. Tiffany thrived in social situations, while I was shy and reserved. She had a captivating personality. Tiffany could walk into a room and immediately make everyone smile, laugh, and be fascinated by her. She didn't just make friends easily, it seemed like she had a special gift for drawing people to her, almost as if she were the sun around which everyone gravitated. Despite our differences, I loved Tiffany. I took my role as her older sister seriously and felt fiercely protective whenever she needed me. When Tiffany started attending the same high school as me, I was thrilled. At first, being Tiffany's older sister made me proud, as if I had a special place in her life. But as Tiffany got older, things started to change. As Tiffany settled into high school and built her own personality, I noticed how she began to see me differently. She started noticing how different we were and how we were treated differently. While I was the quiet, bookish type, Tiffany was vivacious and popular, quickly fitting in with the cool crowd. I saw how Tiffany started to recognize my eccentricities and insecurities, which made me seem less cool. Tiffany began distancing herself from me, seeking new friends. It hurt deeply. It was painful to realize that my own sister saw me as inferior. Still, I did my best to accept her decision and give Tiffany the space she seemed to need, though it hurt to think I was losing not only my sister, but also a friend. Slowly, Tiffany stopped ignoring me altogether and began hanging out with others who made me feel like an outcast. Tiffany and her friends would seize every opportunity to humiliate me. Whenever we crossed paths in the halls or at lunch, they'd mock me in front of other students, or, worse, try to trip me as I passed by with my lunch tray just to get a laugh. It felt like I was losing Tiffany not to new people, but to the same teasing and cruelty I had endured for so long. I was always on edge, trying to avoid not just the criticism of my peers, but also the humiliation from my own sister. It was incredibly painful, especially since it came from someone I had always admired and looked up to. When Tiffany invited her friends over, they would all gang up on me at home. They would rush into my room without knocking, then laugh and gesture to my body. They'd fling insults like geek and fatty at me like they were nothing. I felt like a zoo animal, as if I were their source of entertainment. When they entered my personal space in my room, I felt small and alone, as if I were an alien in my own home. I tried to explain it to Mom several times, hoping Mom would realize how tough it was for me to deal with Tiffany's conduct. But every time I brought it up, Mom dismissed my worries. They'd smile and defend her acts, claiming that this is how siblings bond, that Tiffany was only playing around with me. They told me it was harmless, even suggesting that I loosen up and stop taking everyone's taunts so seriously. They told me that I was older and should be more patient and resilient. So, not only did I face years of bullying from my peers, including my own sister, but my concerns were repeatedly rejected by Mom. It made me feel isolated, as if no one in my own family realized or understood how deeply it hurt. The only time I ever felt properly noticed by Mom was when I received my grades. Academics had always come effortlessly to me, and I became accustomed to receiving high grades. In a way, it was the one area where I felt superior to everyone else. It was also the one way I could make Mom proud, the one part of my life that they appeared to actually care about. Mom enjoyed bragging about my accomplishments to friends and relatives, portraying me as the family scholar, as if my grades were evidence of their parenting prowess. But Tiffany detested the analogies. Tiffany was not an academic overachiever, nor did she want to be, but Mom's repeated reminders of my accomplishments made Tiffany resentful. They put my grades up as an example, meaning that she needed to do the same. I could always tell Tiffany was frustrated and angry, which is probably why she did what she did to me. Tiffany would occasionally attempt to destroy my hard work in order to get back at me. She would sneak into my room in the middle of the night and grab my homework, often just before a major task was due. I'd wake up the next morning to find my perfectly completed work stolen. Panic would set in, and I'd feverishly hunt through my books, papers, and files, becoming increasingly anxious with each passing minute. And there Tiffany'd be, smirking, watching me from the doorway, relishing every moment of my anxiety. To her, it was a minor victory, a way to bring me down a peg and remind me that I wasn't invincible. She understood how important my grades were to me, how much of my self-worth I had invested in them. And Tiffany enjoyed disturbing that aspect of my life. I only found out about her stealing my assignments years later, when she drunkenly admitted it one evening. My relationship with Tiffany has softened over time, but they are still far from close. You could say they've matured a little, and some of the animosity from their youth has dissipated. However, the strong closeness that siblings often enjoy did not fully emerge between us. After graduation, I moved out and started a new life, in a new city, with an interesting job and new chances, which meant I didn't see my family as much. As time passed, our communications became limited to occasional phone calls or texts. So, last year, when I scheduled a summer visit home, I was truly excited to see everyone. It had been a long time since they'd all gotten together as a family, and I was excited to catch up and reconnect. However, not everything went as planned. Their family lunch began well enough. Everyone appeared delighted to see me, and for a moment, it felt like old times. That changed, however, when Tiffany unexpectedly revealed her engagement. None of them saw it coming, and they initially assumed she was joking. However, it was instantly apparent that she was serious. She proudly put out her hand, displaying a gorgeous ring, and I couldn't help but remark how exquisite it was. I was genuinely happy for her, delighted that she had finally met someone she loved and who loved her back. Almost as soon as the congratulations subsided, Tiffany turned to me and inquired about my recent activities. I told her about my profession, my life, and how rewarding things had been for me. Before I could finish, Tiffany cut me off. "I can't help but say this," Tiffany started, smirking, "but why are you still fat? If your life is truly amazing, shouldn't you have shed weight by now?" Her remarks hit me like a slap, reawakening old insecurities that I thought I had overcome. The room became uncomfortably silent, and I could feel everyone's gaze on me, waiting to see how I would respond. I merely shrugged and tried to laugh awkwardly at her comment, but Mom immediately joined in to criticize me. They began discussing how I was still obese and unmarried, and how they were concerned I would never have children. I felt so mortified hearing them talk like that. My accomplishments, the work I was proud of, the life I had made for myself in another city, didn't seem to matter. In their eyes, they were just concerned with my weight, and the fact that I did not have my own family. As Mom and Tiffany continued to talk about me, their comments wound deeper than I imagined. I had spent years eventually discovering myself, gaining confidence and freedom. But in those moments, I felt like the same nervous, awkward teenager I had always been, anxious for my family's acceptance and approval. Mom then applauded Tiffany for getting engaged before me and expressed their pride in her. To them, I was the inferior child, successful but not quite enough. What was supposed to be a happy family reunion had swiftly turned into a heartbreaking reminder of old scars. At that point, I felt more like an outsider than ever. Tiffany did not stop. She continued to ask probing questions. "So, when are you getting married? I mean, do you even have a boyfriend?" Tiffany was blatantly mocking me in front of everyone by bringing up my romantic life. Mom soon jumped on the subject, agreeing with Tiffany that it was past time for me to find someone before it was too late. They pointed out how Tiffany, being younger, was settling down before me, whilst I, the older one, was wasting my life away at work. I attempted to argue that I liked my life the way it was, that my work and freedom provided me with fulfillment. My career paid well, and I was passionate about it, so why did I need to meet a spouse or have a child to be happy? I am content just the way I am, I informed them. But my words didn't appear to register. Mom especially appeared contemptuous. She gave me a sharp look and taunted me. What's the point of earning all that money if you don't have anyone to come home to? It was as if they couldn't believe that happiness existed outside of marriage or family. Sitting there, I had the typical feeling of being misunderstood, that my life choices were disregarded. This was my family, and they were supposed to know me best. However, they appeared to be preoccupied with a different definition of happiness than mine. I had come home seeking connection and warmth, but instead got judgment and taunts. Tiffany then smirked and added, "I expect you to at least have a +1 by the time Tiffany's wedding rolls around." Tiffany chuckled and kept going. "I don't want people thinking my sister is some old, miserable woman all alone while Tiffany getting married." The comment stung. I simply shook my head and assured her I'd try. That's when Dad spoke out again matter-of-factly. "Tiffany's wedding is almost a year away. Even if you can't find a partner, you could at least try to lose weight and look more presentable for her wedding." They suggested that if I reduced weight, it would be simpler for me to attract a partner. Tiffany enthusiastically agreed with them. "Yeah, I want you to lose a few pounds at least," Tiffany remarked nonchalantly, as if Tiffany was doing me a favor. I sat there astonished and humiliated, with an aching that I hadn't felt in years. How could my relatives talk to me like this? Did I truly deserve their hateful words simply because I was overweight? Was I not meant to have feelings because I was fat? I was a normal person just like them. I functioned like everyone else. I never considered my weight as an impediment, so why did they? I'd even dated men who liked me just the way I was, but Mom and Tiffany made it sound like my weight was preventing me from finding love, or men approaching me, which wasn't even true. I wanted to defend myself and tell them how terrible their statements were, but I felt frozen, unable to find the correct words. Their statements took me back to high school, to the agonizing times when my weight made me a target. I despised how nonchalantly my family brought up my deepest concerns, without considering how they made me feel. So, I sat there, holding in my pain, and let the topic go to anything else. When I returned home from my trip to see my family, I pushed myself into reducing weight with a zeal I had not realized I possessed. It began as a way to prove something to my family, but it gradually grew very personal. I joined a gym, followed a rigorous diet, and even hired a personal trainer, Maria. Maria has been a lifesaver. After going through her own change from overweight to healthy weight, she knew just how to assist me through a path tailored particularly for me. She created a routine specific to my goals and encouraged me every step of the way, reminding me to give myself grace when I stumbled. This time, everything seemed to click. I started losing weight steadily, and as the pounds came off, I felt lighter, not just physically, but also mentally. For the first time in my life, I began to feel and appear different. My confidence increased quickly. I used to assume that decreasing weight wouldn't have much of an influence, but it has. People see me differently today. Strangers are nicer and more attentive. Friends and colleagues see me with fresh respect. I can't deny that this seems like a validation I've never gotten before. It's as if I've suddenly become more noticeable than I was before. My new body brought a new sense of style. I overhauled my entire wardrobe, filling it with items I had only fantasized about wearing. I even opted for a full hair makeover, attempting a daring and trendy style that I would have been too afraid to try in the past. Perhaps it seems expensive, but I've never felt so good. I look in the mirror now and don't recognize the person staring back. It's like meeting a version of myself that I never knew existed. I'm proud of how far I've come, not just because I lost weight, but also because I gained confidence and self-assurance. With Tiffany's wedding just 2 weeks away, my family has invited me to fly down and join them for lunch next week to finalize the plans for her special day. But I don't feel like returning home. I don't want my family to ridicule me again or make me feel tiny, especially now that I'm finally feeling good about myself for the first time in a long time. I don't want to go to Tiffany's wedding anymore because of how she and Mom have treated me, but I know if I don't go, they'll be furious and give me a long lecture about how family is family and how no matter how heartbroken I am, I must be present for Tiffany's big day. So, AITA, what happens if I do not attend my sister's wedding? Update 1. Wow. I'm overwhelmed by everyone's response. Some of your proposals are truly humorous. I can't believe you're encouraging me to show up and mess with my sister now that I've lost so much weight. Growing up as a fat kid had a negative impact on my self-esteem, particularly in terms of how I perceived myself. I struggled with self-doubt for a long time, always believing that I wasn't good enough or didn't measure up to others. But reading all of your responses has been a game changer. It's as if you've helped me see myself in a completely new light, and I'm finally starting to feel more confident than I ever have. In fact, I'm seriously considering turning up to my family's lunch and shocking them. They haven't seen me in a long time, and since I don't use social media, they have no idea how much weight I've dropped. It will be interesting to witness their reactions. Update 2. Okay, Reddit, you're not prepared for this update. Grab some popcorn because things are about to get exciting. I decided to fly down to join my family for lunch. As I previously stated, I believed that when they saw me, they would be proud of the transformation I had undergone. After all, they were the ones who pushed me into it in the first place. Surely they'd be overjoyed to see the positive improvements in me and finally recognize the effort I'd put in. When I walked into my parents' house, their jaws absolutely dropped. They looked at me stunned, as if they couldn't believe I was the same person. After a time, they stammered, wondering if it was actually me. I gave them a big hug, thrilled with their reaction. They continually complimented my appearance, saying how beautiful I looked and how they couldn't believe it was me. However, when Tiffany came, the situation changed. She didn't notice me at first, disregarding me as if I were invisible, as she had done so many times before. But when I rose up to greet her, she did a double take, her eyes widening with surprise. She gave an odd, almost forced laugh before reaching over and pushing her fingers on my stomach wide-eyed, as if she wanted proof that I had truly dropped all of that weight. Me laughed at her reaction and explained that they too couldn't believe it at first. As they settled in for lunch, the subject turned to my makeover. Tiffany and me bombarded me with questions about how I had done it, marveling at how different I appeared. Their voices were full of surprise, as if they had never imagined I could look any other way. Tiffany, in particular, kept saying that she had never anticipated me to alter so dramatically after dropping weight. Then Tiffany dropped this gem. When Mom first asked you to lose weight, Mom never expected you to look this pretty. Mom didn't even know you had that jawline and those ankles beneath all that fat. I hesitated, attempting to maintain my cool, and smiled at her before reminding her, Tiffany, I've always been pretty. Losing weight just enhanced my features. Tiffany, on the other hand, contended that there was something more about me that was distinct. Then she had the courage to ask, did you have some surgeries done on yourself? Because there's no way you look this good by yourself. I could feel my blood starting to boil, the hubris to believe that I required surgery to look attractive when, in fact, I had worked so hard to get my current appearance. I looked her directly in the eyes and replied, wow, Tiffany, it's amazing that you think that little of me. No surgery, just a lot of hard work and self-love. Something you might want to try sometime. Tiffany's expression changed from surprise to displeasure, but I didn't care. It felt amazing to finally say something and put her in her place. Before she could react, Me jumped in, attempting to smooth things over in their own way. You shouldn't be offended, Me replied. The three of us have just never seen you look this way before. Honestly, you look even more beautiful now than Tiffany does, and she's the one getting married. Tiffany appeared much angrier following Mom's remark. I simply ignored her and concentrated on my food, allowing my sister to seethe in her rage. Then Mom joined in. You know, Jessica was thinking, maybe you should go back to your original hair color. Mom think you'd look even better with your natural shade. This blonde look makes you stand out too much. And maybe you should just go back to your old look. Tiffany and Dad quickly agreed with her. Dad concurred with Mom and said, Tiffany has always been the blonde daughter of the family, and you were the brunette, so it would be a good idea for you to go back to your original hair color. It might make you look more like yourself. Hearing their statements, I was taken aback. It suddenly felt like the three of them were ganging up on me, trying to bring me down. Maria had suggested I change my hair color to blonde because it better matched my skin tone and complexion. It had nothing to do with trying to overshadow or outdo my sister. I could see why Tiffany was jealous of me. I looked nice now, but I couldn't understand why my parents were so unhappy with me. It was as if they wanted to turn me back into who I used to be, even though they had initially wanted me to be more presentable for Tiffany's upcoming wedding. But now that I had changed, they couldn't accept who I had become. Instead of celebrating my progress, they wanted to tear me down. Finally, I snapped at Mom. "What's your problem? Why can't I be blonde too? Does Tiffany's sister own that color or something?" I paused, frustration building inside me. "No, she doesn't. I can be blonde or brunette. It's my choice. Why does it matter to you so much?" I just couldn't understand why they were so obsessed with me returning to my old self, as if my appearance had to reflect who I was before. Mom scoffed at me, accusing me of intentionally trying to undermine Tiffany's wedding by making myself stand out with my appearance. Tiffany joined in, saying, "With your weight loss, you're already going to stand out, so do you really need to take my hair color too?" Dad, as usual, agreed with them, telling me I was being difficult for no reason and that, as Tiffany's sister, I should be more understanding. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't about taking anything from anyone. It was about having the freedom to do what made me happy. But instead of supporting me, they were all worried about how it would make Tiffany uncomfortable. "You know what? I'm done with this," I muttered, the words almost burning as they left my mouth. "The three of you are so consumed by your own negativity that you can't even accept that I've changed. The truth is, I've always been amazing just the way I am, but none of you ever saw it. Now, even after I've lost weight, it's still not good enough for you. No matter what I do, it's never enough." I took a moment to let the weight of what I just said settle. They just stared at me, but it didn't matter. I was done holding back. "Since you all love giving me unsolicited advice, it's time I give you some," I said, my voice rising. I turned to Mom first, the words flowing out like a dam breaking. "Mom, I really hate how loose the skin around your eyes and lips is. They droop on one side when you laugh. I can't help but notice your crooked teeth. And honestly, it's just disgusting to me." I gave her a moment to react before turning to Dad. "Dad," I said, my voice firm, "you're bald. You really don't have the right to say anything about anyone's hair or their hair color. How are you going to criticize someone's looks when you can't even keep a full head of hair?" I saw his face stiffen, but I wasn't done yet. Finally, I turned to Tiffany. "And you, don't ever talk down to me again. Between the two of us, I've always been the better-looking sibling, but now that I've lost all this weight, you look even bigger than me. Just look at those chubby arms of yours." Tiffany's face turned bright red, and she looked as though she might cry. I raised my glass, downed it in one go, and walked out with a smirk, leaving them all stunned and speechless. I had said everything I needed to say. I couldn't believe those words had come out of my mouth, but I didn't regret them one bit. They deserved to be humiliated after years of criticism. After lunch, I flew directly back home. I wasn't going to stay and attend Tiffany's wedding. Since then, my phone has been flooded with voicemails and texts from Mom and Tiffany, calling me disrespectful and foul-mouthed for how I spoke to them and for leaving. Mom even insisted that I fly back down to attend Tiffany's wedding, because it wouldn't look good to her in-laws if I didn't. Update 3. So, I ended up skipping Tiffany's wedding, thanks to all of your suggestions. Instead of going home to attend, I decided to treat myself to an impromptu staycation at a 5-star resort. Honestly, it was one of the best decisions I've made in a long time. I spent the weekend doing whatever made me happy. No drama, no pressure, just pure enjoyment. I treated myself to a spa day, binge-watched my favorite shows, and even visited some new places in the city I had been wanting to see. I've also blocked my relatives so they can't contact me anymore. I'm tired of being bullied by them, and I want to avoid all their toxic drama. Right now, my main focus is on self-care.